Hello, everyone. Today's case might bring you a mix of fear and indignation for the victim. This story is about a female university student who was suddenly attacked at the crowded Jaya station. The perpetrator quickly fled the scene, and no one knew his motive. However, the horrifying aspect lay in his behavior when he was later apprehended. It all began in Saitama Prefecture, located in the central Kanto region of Japan, which is part of the Tokyo metropolitan area. Saitama is blessed with fertile land, dense forests, and many historical sites. In the northeastern part of this prefecture lies a small town called Okagawa, with a population of 80,000. Over 20 years ago, a shocking event that caused outrage both domestically and internationally occurred in this land. On Tuesday, October 26, 1999, at 12:30 p.m., in the bustling area of Okagawa Station, under the watchful eyes of numerous people, a strange man attacked and stabbed a female university student multiple times before fleeing. The victim was rushed to the hospital, but unfortunately, the poor girl could not survive. Her identity was quickly confirmed. She was Shiori Ino, a 21-year-old second-year literature student at Jiyin Women's University. She lived with her family in eastern Saitama Prefecture. Shiori Ino was the eldest daughter with two younger brothers. Her parents, both 49 years old, were her father, an office worker, and her mother, a housewife. On that fateful day, Shiori cycled to the nearby Okagawa station, intending to catch a train to school. She parked her bicycle on the sidewalk and bent down to lock it when a man suddenly attacked her from behind and stabbed her multiple times. Shiori Ino couldn't react and quickly bled out, collapsing to the ground. Everything happened in an instant. After receiving a call from a bystander, the police quickly arrived at the scene. According to eyewitness accounts, the assailant was a man around 1.7 meters tall, slightly overweight, wearing a blue jacket. Soon after, the victim's family identified a specific suspect because 4 months earlier, their daughter had reported being harassed, but the police had ignored her complaint. So what exactly happened? Let's continue the story. The story begins in January 1999. A man named Tanaka approached and befriended Shiori. At first, he would give her extremely expensive gifts, including dolls worth up to 300,000 JPY. The value of these gifts gradually increased, including handbags and clothes. Shiori was a girl who didn't care much about brands or fame. She only wore such items when going out with Tanaka and another stranger. However, over time, she began to feel some pressure and anxiety, so she subtly refused to accept gifts from them. Unexpectedly, Tanaka and the other man reacted very violently upon hearing her refusal. It was the first time she sensed that these two might have psychological issues. From then on, Tanaka and the stranger no longer pretended. They frequently displayed erratic behavior, such as driving recklessly, suddenly accelerating, and then braking sharply. Shiori confided to her friends that she was terrified of being in the car with Tanaka, her boyfriend, for some unknown reason. Both men always carried a camera, even taking photos of themselves while driving. Eventually, Shiori began to suspect her new boyfriend. One day, she found a credit card with the name Kazuhito on the dashboard. She also found several items with the name Kazuhito in the car, realizing that her boyfriend had been hiding his true identity from her. She began to realize she was being deceived. Shiori remembered witnessing Kazuhito talking with a gangster-like man, and this made her realize she could no longer trust him. One day in March of that year, Shiori went to the apartment of Kazuhito and the other man. In the bedroom, she discovered a hidden camera and asked them what they were planning. To her shock, Kazuhito grabbed her arm, pulled her into the next room, shoved her against the wall, and threatened her. He said, "Are you rebelling against me? If so, return the 1 million JPY I gave you to buy clothes. If you can't, then sell your body to make the money." He then repeatedly punched the wall, terrifying Shiori, who was a delicate and timid girl. After calming down, she firmly told Kazuhito that she wanted to end things with him. But instead of being worried, Kazuhito threatened her further, saying that if she did, her family would suffer, as he would do everything in his power to cause them trouble. Faced with such a fierce threat, Shiori, like a frightened rabbit, didn't dare say anything more. As a result, she was brutally beaten by Kazuhito and Takeshi, the other man. From that day on, her life was under the control of Takeshi and Kazuhito. They called her every 30 minutes to check on what she was doing. If she missed even one call, these despicable men would call her family and friends, so Shiori always answered the phone and never turned it off. Additionally, Takeshi and Kazuhito used illegal means to monitor her 24/7. After a few days, their actions drove her to the brink of despair. Once again, Shiori desperately wanted to end things with these two depraved men. However, they had already gathered information about her, including her father's workplace and her mother's details. They threatened that she had to continue dating them, or her family would suffer. In an attempt to escape this possessive and toxic relationship, Shiori dyed her hair in a crystalline style, hoping they wouldn't recognize her. However, the person she trusted most betrayed her. The two men cleverly gave gifts to Shiori's best friend to gather information about her whereabouts. When Shiori learned this, her heart broke into 100 pieces. Every action was being watched, and she had to report even the smallest movements to those two men. It was truly a prison for both her body and mind. A month later, Takeshi and Kazuhito forced Shiori to kneel in their apartment and delete all contact numbers except theirs. Under this oppressive terror, she had no other choice. Their behavior became increasingly brazen. They called Shiori's current boyfriend and classmates, threatening that if anyone tried to help her, she would suffer a lifetime of torment. Shiori was now so mentally broken that she couldn't endure it any longer. Many times she begged them to let her go, but they only intensified their threats. The two men constantly monitored Shiori's every move, and the poor girl had no choice but to endure. She didn't even dare to resist, fearing that any action might cause her family to suffer. Whenever she spoke to her best friend, she said she didn't know how much longer she could hold on, and always felt like she could be killed by those two at any moment. 2 months later, Shiori was completely exhausted both mentally and physically. Once again, she asked to break up with Takeshi and Kazuhito. That night at around 8 p.m., Takeshi and Kazuhito, accompanied by 2 other men, showed up at her house. These 2 men were Yoshifumi Kubota, an associate of Takeshi, and Akira Kawakami. That evening, only Shiori's mother was home. She demanded they leave immediately, but without saying a word, they barged into the house. Fortunately, her father returned just in time. One of the men, claiming to be Kazuhito's brother, said he had embezzled company money to buy gifts for Shiori, amounting to a significant sum, and now they were blaming Shiori for the debt. They demanded 2.5 million JPY from the family, threatening to sue Shiori for fraud if they didn't pay. After hearing the situation, her father felt there was more to the story and outright refused, leading to a heated argument between the two sides. Eventually they left, but during this time, although Kazuhito and Takeshi didn't say much, everything was recorded by Shiori's family. When Shiori returned home, her parents told her what happened, and she openly shared her own experiences with them. The next day, the 3 of them went straight to the police station to report the incidents. Some officers listened seriously to their recorded evidence, but they still cited the reason of not intervening in civil disputes, stating that civil issues should be resolved by the courts. They also rejected the family's request to search Kazuhito's home for their safety, saying it was impossible. Helpless, Shiori returned all the gifts she had received. Seeing the returned gifts, Kazuhito and Takeshi became extremely angry and started planning their revenge. The inhumane behavior and police negligence. In the following days, they frequently harassed her with phone calls. Shiori was even stalked by their associates lurking nearby. Early in the morning, on August 13th, hundreds of vulgar flyers containing Shiori's photos were scattered around her house, on her way to school, and at her father's workplace. When her mother saw these explicit images, she was utterly shocked. She quickly destroyed them and reported the incident to the police. 2 officers were dispatched, but after that, no further action was taken. 2 days later, Shiori and her mother went to the police station again to report Kazuhito's continuous harassment and threats to her safety, requesting the police to detain the 2 men. However, the police refused again, suggesting they wait until after Shiori's exams to file a civil lawsuit. 5 days later, obscene flyers with Shiori's images and personal information were distributed in the neighborhood mailboxes, resulting in numerous harassing phone calls from people who saw them. 2 days after her exams ended, Shiori and her family went to the police station again, but they were dismissed with the excuse that the person in charge was unavailable and were asked to return in a week. The family had no choice but to bear the frustration. A week later, they went back, but shockingly, the police claimed they couldn't identify the perpetrator, and declined to take on the case without having investigated. The family, who believed the law would support them, found themselves further victimized by the very system meant to protect them. Grisly machinations. On August 23rd, Shiori's father received hundreds of anonymous letters while he was at work, accusing him and his daughter of having a child out of wedlock. When he went to the police station with the letters to report the issue, he was met with the excuse that the responsible officer was not available, which left him very disappointed. Meanwhile, Kazuhito and Takeshi, who had received gifts from Shiori, began planning a murder. They used 20 million JPY as their fee and enlisted the help of Kazuhito's brother, Tatsuo, to carry out their plan. In September of the same year, 3 individuals appeared, one of whom had previously visited Shiori's home: Kubota Yoshifumi, 32 years old, Ito Keiichi, 31 years old, and Kawakami Satoshi. All 3 were members of a local gang, and whenever Tatsuo's business faced problems, they would call individuals like Kubota for support. To create a false alibi, Kazuhito boarded a plane directly to Okinawa. However, he continued to call Shiori frequently to harass her. Meanwhile, after receiving their payment, the 3 men began their actions. Can you guess who was responsible for the terrorizing letters sent to Shiori's home? That's right, it was these 3 men. They spent up to 2 million JPY, and initially the plan was to kidnap Shiori. However, due to the family's vigilance and the fact that Shiori rarely went out at night, and even then only in a large group, they found no opportunity. Even after school, Shiori was often picked up by family members. After 2 weeks of continuous efforts with no opportunity to kill her, they abandoned the original plan. A month later, noticing Kubota's continued silence, Kazuhito flew back from Okinawa to Tokyo. That evening, he and his brother Tatsuo inquired why Kubota had not yet acted. Kubota assured them that he would complete the job within a week. Pleased with this assurance, Kazuhito flew back to Okinawa immediately. 6 days later, Kubota and 3 others drove from Shiori's home to her school, carefully studying her daily route to find a suitable location to carry out their plan smoothly. Ultimately, they chose the Okinawa station as the site, taking advantage of the crowded and chaotic environment during peak hours, ensuring that their actions would go unnoticed. After planning the details, they decided to strike the following morning. On the day of the incident, at 8 a.m., Kubota assigned clear roles, and they drove 2 cars from Ikeda to Okinawa Station. At 9 a.m., Ito, who was near Okinawa Station, spotted Shiori leaving and immediately informed the other 2. Kubota took a position near a shopping center. At 12:30 p.m., under the shopping center, Shiori parked her bicycle to board a train, not knowing this would be her last glimpse of sunlight. As she was parking her bike, Kubota rushed from the crowd, catching Shiori off guard and repeatedly stabbed her, causing her to collapse. Although the surrounding people attempted to surround him, he escaped due to his swift getaway. During the crowded noon, Kubota deviated from the planned route to avoid detection and took a less crowded alley. At 12:50 p.m., Shiori was rushed to Shoei Central Hospital, but she did not survive. After the attack, Kawakami Satoshi picked up Kubota and Ito, and the 3 of them went to inform Tatsuo. By 5 p.m., they met Tatsuo at a karaoke bar in Tokyo, where Tatsuo gave them 18 million JPY as agreed. Kubota, who carried out the attack, received 10 million JPY, while the other 2 split the remaining 8 million JPY. After receiving the money, they dispersed to different locations. Tatsuo also sold the 2 cars used in the incident to a used car dealership. By 3 p.m., the police identified the victim being treated at the hospital and notified the parents. Both Shiori's father and mother firmly believed that Kazuhito and Tatsuo were responsible for their daughter's murder. However, the evidence suggested that the perpetrator was approximately 1.7 meters tall, around 30, 40 years old, somewhat chubby, and had curly hair. These descriptions did not match either of the 2 brothers. On that day, many journalists gathered to cover the case. The police station held a press conference, but the media did not fully grasp the situation. Some reporters, noticing Shiori's young age and high-end clothing, sensationalized the case with headlines suggesting that the university student's greed led to her murder. Others, unclear about the truth, joined in condemning Shiori, claiming that her loose lifestyle justified her tragic end. Among the reporters was a journalist named Shimizu who, driven by curiosity, decided to conduct his own investigation. He uncovered several crucial clues from the victim's friends and family. It became clear that after breaking up with Kazuhito, Shiori had been under his and his accomplices' control for a long time. Shimizu also discovered an important lead. A witness identified the murderer as resembling Kubota, Tatsuo's henchman. Armed with this information, Shimizu began to trace the lead, starting with the series of bars operated by Tatsuo and his brother. However, these bars were closed, and unsure where to continue his investigation, he found that similar service establishments had opened nearby. After a thorough investigation, Shimizu learned that these new establishments were all owned by Tatsuo. He rented an apartment across from these businesses. After 2 months of persistence, Shimizu finally took a photo of a man who resembled the suspect. He showed the photo to Shiori's family, who confirmed that it was Kubota. He promptly gathered all his findings and presented them to the police. 3 days later, with sufficient evidence, the police went to Kubota's house and arrested him for intentional murder. The price to pay. Knowing he could not deny his guilt, Kubota Koshi not only admitted to his brutal actions, but also revealed the whereabouts of his other accomplices. The following day, Kubota's accomplices, Ito, the driver, and Satoshi, who wore a cloak, were all apprehended by the police. On the same day, Tatsuo was also arrested while attempting to escape by car in an underground parking lot. 3 months after the case, they were charged with defamation of Shiori's honor for spreading numerous leaflets and anonymous letters to insult the victim. 8 other people involved in producing the leaflets and anonymous letters were also arrested. However, Kazuhito's whereabouts remained unknown, and he was wanted nationwide. 3 weeks later, Kazuhito was found dead from drowning in a lake in Hokkaido, over 100 kilometers from the scene of the crime. The investigation revealed that in his will, Kazuhito expressed resentment towards Shiori, her family, and the media, blaming the victim for all the wrongs and claiming that he was unjustly accused. 1 year and 9 months after the case, the Saitama court tried the 4 defendants: Matsumoto Tatsuo, Kubota Koshi, Ito, and Kawakami Satoshi for intentional murder. After a year of trial, the court sentenced Tatsuo to life imprisonment, Kubota to 18 years in prison, and Ito and Kawakami Satoshi to 15 years each. Many criticized the police for their lack of serious and thorough oversight of Shiori's suffering, claiming that this negligence was a major cause of her death. Subsequently, the government quickly enacted anti-harassment laws to prevent similar incidents. However, the issue of media misconduct persisted even after the case. Shiori's family could not forgive those who harmed their daughter, believing that she had faced death 3 times, first from the stalkers, second from the police's indifference, and third from the false media coverage. Through this case, in addition to condemning the brutality, we can also see the police's indifference. Had they been diligent in their investigation, this young woman might not have met such a tragic end. Moreover, it highlights the dirty practices of the media, which continued to tarnish the victim's reputation even in death. What do you think about this case? Please share your thoughts with us.